All right, this is part 2 of ReZero Season 2 Episode 13 cut content, and this is going to specifically handle the Roswell stuff because the part 1 covered all the stuff with the Witches' Tea Party. Let's get it.
The second half of episode 38 brings us to chapter 2 of volume 13, a chapter that goes by the title of Ignoring the Odds. It starts moments after Subaru had just parted ways with all the witches.
That's right. We have gotten therapy. Subaru has realized that other people can indeed like him. He's not this pathetic loser that he sees himself as. And everything should be good. Surely what could go wrong?
As we know, Patrash had gone and dragged him out from the tomb.
What?
Had gone and dragged him out from the tomb, parted ways with all the witches. As we know, Patrash had gone and...
I hate people that pronounce his name like this. Her name like this, bro. It's Patrashi. You gotta say it in a Japanese kind of pronunciation to make sure it doesn't sound like trash, bro.
Dragged him out from the tomb, taking the tomb's punishment in the process.
That's right, he got hurt.
Rather than a few scratches
She got
like
hurt.
how we saw in the anime, Patrash's scales were oozing with blood.
Oh, damn.
A lot of her body seemed to be bleeding profusely.
Damn!
The strange thing about these injuries, though, was that they didn't seem to have come from the outside. Her scales didn't indicate any type of physical damage.
Internal?
Instead, it was as if these injuries had originated internally. So that's a small detail that makes whatever enforces the tomb's edict a bit more interesting. In any case, because Patrash had done so much, Subaru wanted to know the why behind it.
Because she loves you so much. She even covered your ass during the explosion scene at the season finale. Picked you as the rightful owner while being noted as one of the most prideful land dragons in the market.
He wanted to know why she was willing to go so far for him.
That line
So
too.
he asked Otto to use his blessing of language to find that out for him. Of course, Otto initially thought this to be a joke. I mean, to him the answer was already obvious, and he didn't think that Subaru was actually this oblivious.
See, that's how I feel too, right? Because like if you really don't think about, oh Jesus Christ. The audacity for this fucking ambulance to be outside right now while I'm covering ReZero content. Shameless. But I can't believe, like, sometimes I think about, like, to Otto this seems insane. And to me it also seems insane until I really think about what kind of character Subaru is, right? It's really hard to understand this character unless you really piecing together his actions.
But Subaru's expression of confusion dictated otherwise. Now, the thing about Otto's blessing is that his ability to converse with animals isn't the same thing as a direct word-for-word translation.
Okay.
It's more like a vague transmission of thought,
Vague?
one that he then has to interpret himself.
So he's capping. I thought that he could literally hear word for word or something. So he's literally just fucking capping.
So, to get a proper answer from Patrash wasn't exactly possible.
Okay.
When
He's lying about it.
he did pose the question, though, the answer Patrash gave was something along the lines of this. But Otto believed it would make more sense to convey her answer a different way. Something like, do I really need to say it for you to understand?
Great translator. Otto, anime subs. Great translator, bro. Nice interpretation to make it seem even more like it fits the scene of, like, you know, Patrash being a girl that is loving Subaru, and, you know, does a lady really need to say that?
The thing is, no matter how many times he tried to rephrase it, Subaru simply couldn't understand what he was trying to say. Otto had to literally spell it out for him so that he could finally understand Patrash's feelings. Once he did, it was a moment that really resonated with his recent confession to Liv. It made him realize that perhaps his desire to be treasured by others wasn't just a distant dream anymore. So this was the first time that Subaru had opened his eyes to this.
Boom. And Patrash is the one. Not Otto, not Rem, not Amelia. It's Patrash.
That's why he couldn't help but be overcome by the emotion of it. Now, Patrash wasn't the only one to convey their feelings to Subaru here.
I'm worried for Patrash though. What if Patrash dies soon? Anytime, like, I feel like Otto's gonna die too. Anytime you have people that gets close to Subaru, with the exception of Amelia, because she's kind of also a main driving factor of the show, I just feel like they're gonna die permanently or something. I'm worried, man. It's just like, the more things that Subaru has that's got going on for him and be happy, doesn't it make sense to, like, also take it away later on through, like, an irreversible checkpoint? And then we can explore more of the psychology behind him. I feel like that's what Tappe would do. Like, there's no way everything is just gonna be happy. We're gonna have all these emotional pillars of support forever. That's why it's just like whenever we get too close, I have my guard up.
Otto had actually done the same as well. He was just a bit more indirect about it. You see, after Subaru had asked if he was worried about him, Otto simply said that this concern was only for the sake of his own future. He then went on to say that if he ever found himself in peril, the first thing he was always going to do was run. There was no sense of duty to Subaru.
I do not blame him for pushing him off the cart here. That was the right choice to do.
There was no sense of duty to Subaru or anyone else that made him feel the urge to put himself in danger for them. It was a very realistic point of view. But something about the way Otto was saying it seemed off. There wasn't really any conviction in it. It came off as something a little bit more lighthearted. So,
because bros don't want to just be all super intimate with bros, and by saying something lighthearted, like, you don't just say I love you to your best friend, I guess, between a bunch of dudes. You might just kind of say some lighthearted shit and hope that the other party like gets the message that they're trying to convey.
So, before Subaru merely nodded it off, he first reflected on those words, then thought about how they contradicted Otto's actions from the previous loops. I mean, this was the person who rescued him from imprisonment.
Otto
It
has
was
been
the same
clutching.
man who saved him from Garfield and fought tooth and nail to get him free from Sanctuary.
That's right.
So it was very clear to Subaru that this was all an act, a facade in which the only response he could give was one of rejection. He starkly told Otto that he wasn't the kind of person to run away. And the reason for that was because they were friends.
Oh,
It was a moment that Subaru used to return an earlier gesture
my
of friendship.
friend.
Now, with all that settled, Subaru then contemplated over the events of the Tea Party. Having just parted ways with an ally he thought he could rely on definitely stung more than he expected it to. He did, however, understand the necessity to do so. That said, Subaru didn't really consider Echidna to be evil. She was simply a person who he could never agree with. A statement that could be said for pretty much all the other witches as well.
'Cause they're witches.
On the other hand, Satella had actually given him something to think about. And that brings into topic the slight spoiler that we talked about last episode.
About how Satella and Witch of Envy split personality disorder.
So if you don't want to know what that is, then
I can watch this. It's the same shit, right?
go ahead and skip to the following timestamp. But anyway, Satella's advice to rely on those he found precious directly contradicted her actions.
Rely on people who you find precious. Contradict her actions. Because by relying on others, you can no longer love yourself? What do you mean?
I mean, she was, after all, the person that forbid him from talking about return by death.
But that could be the Witch of Envy, not Satella. You know what I mean?
So that could only mean that it wasn't Satella who employed that restriction.
Exactly.
Instead,
Here we go.
it was none other than the Witch of Jealousy.
There we go.
Her separate
Wait. Huh?
Instead, it was none other than the Witch of Jealousy.
Why are you just changing the wording up here now? Why are you doing this to me? This isn't like a specific thing, right? A Witch of Jealousy doesn't exist, right? just synonyms, right? Just synonyms, okay? Just synonyms.
Her separate personality that manifested from the absorption.
No. Jealousy and envy are very different. They're not the same word. They aren't. There's a distinct meaning. It's been a while since I've gone over this example, but I've kind of forgotten about it, so I kind of want to refresh myself too. I think I used some sort of like something about a husband being cheated on and feeling jealous or envious example. I forget. What is jealousy versus envy example? Jealousy versus envy etymology. Here's another thing. Here we go. Let's do another. Let's do another. Okay. So jealousy and envy have same situational overlap. For example, let's say another man seduces my wife. She's attracted to him now. I think the man is amazing. Everything I'm not. I become obsessed with his perfection. I'm jealous. Not envious. I'm jealous because I want to keep my wife. I'm also envious because I want what he has. Do you understand the difference here? Jealousy implies that something is being taken from you, something that you already had. Envy is you never had that charm and charisma, right? I think so. Is there any other examples? Yeah, jealousy implies you're envious of someone's ability to take what you have, right? Jealousy implies like you've already had it. Envy is you don't have it and you want something. Right? Does that make sense to you? Here's another Simpsons example. Lisa Simpson, Dad, you shouldn't be jealous of Apu. Remember, it's all about the music. Homer says, I'm not jealous. I'm envious. Jealousy is when you worry someone will take what you have. Envy is wanting what someone else has. The witch of envy is envious of the love that she does not have, right? She never has Subaru's love? That's an interesting thing to talk about. No, this is not potato. There's a specific requirement. This is not a potato, tomato moment. It is not. It really isn't. There is an existence of something you have for jealousy and something you don't have for envy. It's and knowing ReZero, I don't think they'd randomly do that shit. And if you assume with this knowledge now of what a witch of envy would be, then because like, she can only be jealous if she had her love stolen. That's not the case here. Satola never had that love. And she's envious of that love that she never had. It seems like, but that's the thing, right? Because based on our dialogue, right? Based on Satola's dialogue, it does sound like they spent a lot of time together. It sounds like it's like Subaru has shown so much love to her. All of that things, right? For sure. I totally agree. But that's why it's so interesting of like, why specifically envy and not jealousy? Other than Tappei wanting to relate the 7 deadly sins. I don't know.
Of an incompatible witch factor. If that was in fact true, then that meant the person who Subaru made the promise with was Satella. A very significant new piece of information that he really needed to ponder. But right now what mattered the most was breaking out of this stalemate. You see, the mansion, the rabbits, the barrier, Roswell's goal, and even Garfield all served as obstacles that blocked the path that Subaru needed to traverse. So Satella wasn't quite at the top of his concerns right now. That said, there was a bit more progress made on the subject of Garfield. Echidna's final
Echidna actually did give us some tips about how Garfield's scared of the outside world.
piece of advice had given him a lead to follow. Although very minor, knowing Garfield has a fear of the outside world did show Subaru that he now had to appeal to Garfield as a person.
I wonder if that fear has to do with the scar on his head. My theory is that he got the scar trying to protect Frederica from some threat from the outside world and is now traumatized by it. I don't know.
Something that he didn't think to be necessary in.
Maybe the scar doesn't mean anything. Maybe the scar is just a stupid result of Garfield being corrected by Frederica when they were kids, and it was like a big bonk in the head that left a scar, and it's really not meaningful. I don't know.
Any of the other loops. So, with Garfield now being a factor that needs to be considered, that made clearing the Tomb's trial an absolute necessity. Because this was now at the top of the priority list, Subaru became concerned by the number of trials that were left.
That's right, past, present, future, but we've lost the qualification.
He wasn't sure if he'd passed the second trial or not. So he went towards the tomb with the intention of challenging the trials again.
And then puke.
Yes, he was afraid of the possibility of having to face the unknowable presence. But this was the only way to know for sure which trial he was on. Which leads us to the reveal that he was no longer qualified. A revelation that meant it was now impossible for him to liberate Sanctuary. With both that and—
No, you can still do it. Roswell said it, you know? It's like, don't get cocky with me, kid. I also know Echidna. Like, if you truly wanted it, you could get the qualification back. And what would that be? I guess at this point, she's super jealous that we rejected her. So the only thing we can really do is, all right, I'll take your contract. That's what the implication here is, right? For Roswell to force Subaru to make that contract with Echidna and to have the qualification again and just clear the Sanctuary and trample over Amelia's will because you know damn well she can't fucking do it.
And the cooperation of Echidna now gone, Subaru's only remaining choice was to rely on Roswell. A person
that is a fucking menacing art cover
that he could now only see as a monster overcome by obsession. Luckily for Subaru, that obsession was the very thing he was hoping to take advantage of. It brings us to a conversation that actually had quite a bit more to it.
So good, bro. Yeah, the Subaru Roswell dialogues are just always so fucking peak. I'm not sure which one I like more. This one was very good too, but the previous one where he just shocked us by just donating both Ram and Garfield and then started beaten the shit out of Subaru and then just like willingly just went to the bunnies and just told them about how you can be more like me. That one was really good too. I don't know which one I like more.
The one we saw in the anime was a more simplified version. You see, if Subaru could convince Roswaal that he was acting in accordance with the book's will, then perhaps he could trick Roswaal into cooperating. I mean, there
One more time, hold up.
more simplified version. You see, if Subaru could convince Roswaal that he was acting in accordance with the book's will,
If Subaru was acting according to the, the grimoire that he has,
then perhaps he could trick Roswaal into cooperating.
because the grimoire knows everything. But we don't have the grimoire. Roswaal could simply check it. So it's like kind of bluffing right now.
I mean, there really wasn't any way for him to tell that Subaru was lying. So if Subaru said what Roswaal wanted to hear, and basically acted as the person he needed him to be,
To act like that person who's willing to sacrifice everything for the one thing, then we could maybe trick Roswaal.
then there was a very good chance that Roswaal could be deceived into helping him. At first, this actually looked as if it was working.
But
There was a moment when Roswaal was seriously considering an answer to his question.
is there a way out of a sanctuary that doesn't involve the tomb? As in, don't clear the trial, right? What did he say about that? Was there?
But to imagine that someone like Echidna left a convenient way past her barrier, well, that wasn't something very conceivable. As Roswaal continued to ponder the thought, Subaru became more comfortable as he believed that Roswaal had fallen for his trap. But it was that very comfort that led him to make a crucial mistake. He began to reveal things a bit too willingly and a bit too quickly. It was an unnatural form of behavior that Roswaal literally found to be sus.
Sus!
He found that Subaru's actions didn't
I cannot help but find your answer suspect. Even in the light novel translation, they don't like the clown pronunciation. He'll fucking extend the vowels.
match his words. I mean, Subaru's resolve to help Amelia was supposed to be at its peak, so it didn't make sense for him to want to find this loophole. When confronted about it, Subaru tried to rationalize his idea by saying the method wasn't important. In comparison to the White Whale or the Witch Cult, liberating Sanctuary wasn't exactly the most noteworthy achievement. So if improving Amelia's position in the royal selection was the overall goal, then Sanctuary wasn't something they needed to waste time on.
Is there a greater plan here? I thought it was all about making Amelia more isolated and to have dependence, and then Subaru to just do everything himself. Because like the previous shit, Arc 3, it's just like getting credits, right? And right now, is Roswaal's intentions to make Amelia look good? No, not really. Or else he'd be wanting Subaru to push for Amelia's success and for her to build up self-confidence, rather than us trampling over her will and just brute forcing the solution by Subaru saving everything. It really doesn't really... It doesn't set up Amelia for that future success.
He was trying to convince Roswaal that it didn't matter how Sanctuary was liberated. From a logical point of view, this line of reasoning definitely made complete sense. But it wasn't something that Roswaal could accept as the truth. Because he was yet to confirm the specifics of Subaru's authority, he refused to assist with the search for a loophole, stating that if Subaru truly wanted to be trusted as a co-conspirator, then all he needed to do was liberate Sanctuary the right way.
I wish for this liberation of Sanctuary not through the back door, but rather with a true sense. If you achieve this, my suspicions will be allayed.
He needed to do was liberate Sanctuary the right way.
And
Of course, Subaru tried to fight the idea.
the right way is Subaru to simply get the qualification back and clear it himself, right? According to Roswaal's what definition of right is.
But the more he resisted the notion, the more suspicious Roswaal became. Eventually, the conversation had made a complete 180. Roswaal was now backing Subaru into a corner where the only answer left was the one where he would accept doing the trials, bringing us to the moment when he began to question Subaru's resolve. Now, normally Subaru would...
Yeah, apparently we're not even at the starting line of our resolve. Even though there's been many different turning points where it seems like Subaru has regained his resolve to push through. But the resolve that Roswaal's talking about, I think, is fundamentally different. Because it's the resolve to just be brutally so willing to walk in the path of isolation, to be able to just sacrifice everything, to willingly give up the mansion for the sake of getting Amelia, just like forcing Amelia to pass the trials by him solving it himself, right? It's all about like not saving everything, but as long as the end justifies the means, and for you to ruthlessly sacrifice everything just for the one cause that you think is most important, which is Emilia.
Would have had no problem sacrificing everything to save the person most precious to him. I mean, he was quite literally a handshake away from doing exactly that. But a recent encounter made him realize that he didn't want to.
I wonder if somehow Roswell's grimoire was telling Subaru to go the if greed route. I don't know how detailed it is. But like his implication of like you can get the qualification back at the end, right? And the only way seemingly right now, because the kid is so mad after dumping her, is probably through this contract, right?
But a recent encounter made him realize that he didn't want to. So, because this wasn't the Subaru that Roswaal needed, he simply lay himself back down and made it clear that this loop wasn't worth living in anymore.
Yep, he gave up.
He was just going to watch Subaru's futile struggle then proceed to end his own life. Another point that wasn't made clear in the anime. That said, Subaru wasn't ready to let that happen. If Roswaal died, then he'd have to restart.
Are you actually asking me questions like this because you're confused? Or are you trying to like guide me into some sort of path that you want to subtly hint at? Because you and I both know Roswaal attacked the mansion through Elsa to create this impossible situation for Subaru to pick one or the other. It's about what are you going to sacrifice? That's pretty much it. I don't know if you're genuinely asking me a question about this show, or if you're a sweaty light novel reader that wants to subtly hint and mold my perspective on the show in a different light. I am genuinely confused when you ask me these questions, because these are pretty obvious questions that you're asking. And constantly I've commentated exactly about these specific things. You know? Like I've already told you. He wants Subaru to become this ruthless person to be able to sacrifice whatever. The point of the mansion and here is to create these impossible scenarios for him to cut shit off and to become more like Roswaal. If you've already heard me say that, and you're still asking the same question, does that mean you're just not paying attention? Or are you telling me that my understanding of this scene is wrong and therefore I should rethink it? I don't know what to think at the moment.
For sure. So, in an attempt to salvage this loop, Subaru began to question Roswaal's intent, leading to the whole speech about life, future, hope, and possibility.
That's right. If you have a loop, bro, as a future, and you can hope for it, a possibility to save a life, it's just this fucking loop. And this loop is possible because you have the regression power.
As well as the revelation about his involvement with the mansion.
That's right.
Since this scene was taken word for word from the novels, not much needs to be said other than a little bit about Subaru's mindset. It was here that Subaru realized he'd completely underestimated Roswaal's knowledge of the loop.
Yeah, he got on his fucking knees. And he started to apologize on all fours, like Douglas style, saying, I'm so sorry. I've lost the qualification. Please, don't attack the mansion. It's impossible. I cannot solve it. And Roswaal's like, nah, it's even better. This will sharpen your resolve even more. I'm gonna place even more impossible situations on you, and you will figure it out. You will become like me, the ultimate soldier.
Any advantage he believed he'd obtained from Return by Death was nothing more than his own presumptive arrogance. Roswaal had
This is probably the worst Subaru looks.
He'd obtained from Return by Death was nothing.
This frame. The more I look at it, the more I realize how wonky it really is. It's the one off frame in ReZero. It's not even bad, but like, it looks wonky. You know what I mean? I look at Subaru, I'm like, hold on a second. Is this Subaru or is this Barusu?
More than his own presumptive arrogance. Roswaal had created a plot so infallible that not even Return by Death could beat it. That's why Subaru saw the need to apologize. He now understood that Roswaal was the only person this entire time who had any power over anything.
Yeah, and he's gonna continue to push you. Like, he's not gonna back off. You will become like Roswaal. Or, and I think it makes more sense that Subaru will simply realize that I don't need to become like you. Your solution is not the only one. I can create my own different resolve and make it possible to save the mansion and the sanctuary and not have to give up something. That has to be the answer. Now, I don't know exactly how that's going to be possibly achieved, but I refuse to believe that we're going to become like Roswaal. And I don't want Subaru to become like Roswaal. In a different if story, maybe it's fun, but I think having one mad clown is simply enough. We don't need two Roswaals.
To think anything else was nothing more than pure conceit. Once Subaru realized that nothing could be done, he left Roswell's room and started to aimlessly wander the forest, bringing us to a cut scene in which Subaru was contemplating everything he learned. As he did, he began to realize that this probably wasn't the first time Roswell had hired Elsa. The whole
Arc 1, that's all Roswell, I'm pretty sure. And the craziest shit there is he hasn't even met Subaru yet, but the book probably told him of it. But like if you think about the order of events in first episode, Felt already had the pendant. And Elsa, like Roswell has already hired Elsa before Subaru even was in Lagunica. Or at least that's what it seems like in the anime timeline. You know what I mean? This dude was not even in this world. But the book was like, hire Elsa. Steal the insignia from Emilia. And a 17-year-old NEET from Japan will show up and solve your problems. And then Roswell read that and it was like, okay, sure. Fuck it, let's go.
situation in the capital was likely part of his plans as well. Felt stealing Emilia's jewel, then Elsa being hired to buy it back.
Yeah, but no, but this happened before. Even when Felt stole it, Felt already had a buyer. This is not... Elsa was not hired after Felt. It wasn't, right? Felt stole it, and she already had a buyer ready, right? At least that's my interpretation.
Then Elsa being hired to buy it back were nothing more than elaborate moves made with the purpose of getting Subaru to intervene. So Subaru...
Elsa had 20 coins as well, Subaru with this Nokia. Oh shit. Elsa hired Felt to steal... Oh, sorry, yeah, that even makes more sense too. Even if what I said before didn't make sense, that even makes more sense, that Elsa hired Felt to steal it. By then, Roswell had already made a plan. Elsa showed up with the just amount of coin. Man, this book is detailed as fuck. It even prophesies like Ramji's like upper fucking rating, the appraisal of the Meteor 2. It's crazy how far this fucking goes. And it's even more fun to think about like how many steps Roswell was already, because like I'm thinking that Roswell started to listen to his grimoire at this point, but nah, man. I bet like he's been reading this shit for a long time, like even before all these events. How, and like, remember the theory that Roswell is doing some Orochimaru shit? Because Roswell, his naming scheme in every generation of Roswell is Roswell alphabet letter Mathers. And I'm like, that's very uncanny and everyone just looks like Roswell. I'm assuming Roswell has perfected the immortality possession technique thing that Echidna was trying to do before, but she couldn't have enough time to do it. Roswell is basically sending his own soul to a new fucking Roswell baby every generation. So like, for how long does this stem back? When did he have this grimoire? From the beginning. Does that mean Rem foiled Roswell's plans when he killed Subaru on that round? It could be true. I'm not sure. Rem was like apologizing in that future artificial timeline that Echidna made. Because like Roswell never ordered Rem to do it, but it's pretty crazy. It's yeah, and the grimoire is a copy, right? It's not the true Tomb of Wisdom. Like, how far do we go? How far do we go back, bro? 400 years? Are we just gonna assume that 400 years ago, like, both Roswell and Byakuya were given the Tomb of, the grimoire? And can I then assume that Echidna is the one that gave both of them both copies? I don't know. But it really doesn't just start at episode 1. The more I think about it, it goes all the way fucking back.
Who could only think about how he'd been manipulated since the first day he'd come here. If everything truly was in accordance with the Book of Knowledge, then perhaps his...
What the fuck is the Book of Knowledge? Ananias, please! Let's keep a consistent terminology. And this is a grimoire, not even Tomb of Wisdom. You are making the wrong name for the wrong book here too, bro.
The idea of free will was nothing more than the extension of someone else's. Perhaps he never...
And that's an interesting thing. There's an interesting debate, and not even in Just and Re:Zero, but in any show where there is this like future, like fate, destiny, and whether or not someone is beholden to that destiny. I think that a little spoilers for you guys that hasn't watched Dune. And I'm not going to give you exact spoilers, but a mechanic like this happens where you're this all-knowing person, and all you gotta do is, you know, follow this person with the future sight. But the moral of the story is, by following this person with future sight, you are now limited as humanity. And the goal is for people to overthrow that position and create their own destiny, their own future, without being bound by this just details, these steps that you're told to do to achieve that future. So Roswell, you know, in this sense, Annie News just says something that's very interesting about, like, you know, how everyone is just bound to this book. They have no other things that they can possibly do. They're just fucking at the whims of this book.
If everything truly was in accordance with the Book of Knowledge, then perhaps his idea of free will was nothing more than the extent.
I've been thinking of watching Dune for a while. You need to watch Dune, bro. Dune is, oh my god, like, there hasn't been another movie where I was that in depth. Like, you like ReZero? I think you would like Dune. The amount of like lore, the amount of deep world building in that shit, it's fucking crazy, bro. If you like religious cults, prophecies, Lisan al-Gaib, bro, it is on another level. That movie, bro. I still think part 1 is better than part 2. I do, which is a hot take, but both parts are great. But you should fucking watch it, bro. If you're into cults, fucking religions, fucking prophecies, the Messiah. Oh my god, you got no clue, bro.
Mention of someone else's. Perhaps he never actually had a choice at all. This carries some pretty serious implications with it. It would mean that getting trapped in Sanctuary and even Rem losing her existence were all events that happened as someone else predicted.
Yes.
It would mean that everything that's happened up until now was completely predetermined by someone else.
And that doesn't make me feel good. That makes me feel like we're in the palms of Roswell just dancing. I want to make my own destiny. I want to make my own future. I don't want this clown to feel fucking good that he has this ultimate soldier that'll simply solve all his problems. No. I want to be the driver. Right now, Roswell is in a taxi ordering Subaru to drive. But Subaru needs to fucking ignore that shit and drive somewhere else. And Roswell, you can just be the passenger. I'm fine if you're fucking down for the ride. You're in Emilio's camp. You're the strongest magician in Lugunica. I think you're a strong asset, but I do not like how we're being forced to just drive in the whims of Roswell. I want to be the one steering.
That someone else wasn't Roswell, though. He was just the person enforcing it.
That's true. It's the Grimoire at the end of the day.
As we know, he would do anything.
And here's another conspiracy theory. Who's writing these grimoires? Who is giving him these patch notes? What is this omnipotent entity that is giving all these advices in the world? Those people are truly the ones shaping this future. What the fuck is like that? There is no answer to that, you know? Yeah, obviously it's Tafe. Yes! Even the Grimoire, even that person is at the whim of Tafe. No shit. I'm talking from a story perspective. I am also thinking that it does update with each loop. I think that with each loop that the Grimoire is being rewritten to match whatever Subaru's new progress has been. But does that mean Sato is doing? Which of Envy's doing? I don't know. I have no clue.
To correct a path that doesn't match with what the book has outlined. So his purpose was only to make the prophecy become a reality. That said, something about this setup just seemed off. There was a remaining mystery regarding these texts that prevented Subaru from piecing everything together.
Like what?
He just couldn't figure out what it was.
What do you mean?
As he continued to go over.
Whoa. What you said here was kind of crazy, was it not?
So his purpose was only to make the prophecy become a reality.
Roswell.
That said, something about this setup just seemed off.
Yes.
There was a remaining mystery regarding these texts that prevented Subaru from piecing everything together.
The fact that Beiko doesn't get any more updates, Roswell seemingly does. Can we even believe Roswell right now? What if he also doesn't have anything in the book and everyone's just fucking lying? Have we seen Roswell's Grimoire? Have we seen the... Because I've seen Betelgeuse's Gospel, and I've seen the text there, and I've also seen it stop being paged in. You know what I'm... Because I will never... In this show specifically, I will never believe something just face value anymore, because everything that is being believed in face value is the reason why we're so confused. The world telling us that Satala is the Witch of Envy and has destroyed everything. Well, turns out she got a fucking personality disorder. Oh shit, I don't know. What about Roswaal? Do you even have the real grimoire? Are you just so delusioned that you like Roswaal? But he must have some basis of truth to go off of, or he wouldn't be just risking his life like that. I don't know, man.
He just couldn't figure out what it was. As he continued to go over the details regarding the Book of Knowledge, that's when Amelia appeared along the path and called to him. It was the second time that he'd bumped into her in the middle of the night.
Do we have this scene in the anime? No. We see Otto, right? We basically run out. Right. Subaru is so terrified after leaving Roswell's place. Then he runs out. Then he's on the ground just like repeating the words like, what am I supposed to do or something over and over and over. And then Otto finds him, right?
Just from a quick glance at Subaru's face, really say much more without talking about the conversation itself, but this was why we saw him running.
Tell me.
He had realized something important.
Alright, he doesn't have it. She said something, and then Subaru felt shame, and now he ran and he started to fucking spam that one line until Otto found him.
That made him feel shame with the way he'd been thinking up until now. So this was his only response to those feelings. Now, everything after regarding the parts with Otto was pretty much the same. So this brings us to the last episode of ReZero Season 2 Part 1. Hopefully you gained some new insight and are a bit more refreshed for Part 2.
Oh man, guys, how many months are we gonna have to wait for Core 2 of ReZero Season 2?
You can expect those episodes of cut content to be out every Tuesday before the next episode.
Man, only
just
Tuesdays?
like how it was last season.
Aw, man.
Now, before I go, don't forget to make the most out of Bookwalker's Isekai.
Yeah. You guys know what to do. Please go give Mr. N News channel a like. Check out his channel if you haven't. And what was the really important things that we learned today? No, this is the same stuff that we learned about the Witch of Envy and, you know, the personality disorder stuff. Some of the Roswaal stuff, we were theorizing more about how it's not just like the beginning of episode 1 when Roswaal was reading the Grimoire. Shit's been spanning down how many years through different Roswaal Mathers if we assume that every Roswaal alphabet Mathers is the same Roswaal. Which I could totally see considering this guy's fucking insane and he does give me Orochimaru vibes and I don't think it's unintentional. Like I could totally see him just possessing different bodies with the same soul over and over and over again, just like a fucking spirit. Does that mean Roswell's a spirit? No, I don't know how that shit works. But that's pretty much it. There's the cut content here, but I don't think we know what Amelia said. Do you guys know what Amelia said? Maybe someone's gonna let me know in the comment section. I don't think it's that important. But that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. I personally enjoyed the Roswaal and Subaru moments a lot more than, well, not a lot more. The witch stuff is also very fascinating. I just have a personal bias with Roswaal because I'm just obsessed with how he's thinking and how everything at the end of the day has been just orchestrated by him, going as far back as Arc 1 beginning and even before that too. But I think that the moral of the story shouldn't be listen to Roswaal, simply just blindly trust the prophecy and walk the path that he is saying to do, like the path of isolation where you need to be able to just sacrifice the mansion or the sanctuary, one or the other, right? You pick what's the most important to you, and Roswaal has deemed that Amelia is. Therefore, Subaru will be brutal enough to cut off the sanctuary, let Byakuya and everyone else die there, and simply save Amelia by just trampling over her will. But no, that's not what we're gonna do. That's not the kind of show this is. We're gonna forge our own path. We're gonna forge our own destiny and fate. Fuck the Grimoire. We'll figure out our own way. And if we do, I wonder how the Grimoire's gonna act. I wonder if the Grimoire's gonna be like, oh shit, this kid actually fucking found a new path. So I guess I'll just update the Grimoire with more different details. Who's even given the details? Does Roswaal even have the details? Is he capping? I don't know. But that's it for me.